This is a really simple question, Counselor. Do you believe that cops kill unarmed black men in America every single day? You said it at Princeton.
Senator, I said it in my role as an advocate.
Oh, okay. You didn't mean it.
Senator, I said it in my role as an advocate to make a rhetorical point.
So when you say something that's incorrect, it's okay to excuse it by saying, oh, I was being an advocate? What do you believe? Do you personally believe that cops kill unarmed black men every single day in America?
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Merrill, I'm looking at an article you wrote in The Breach in 2017. You said, I'm going to quote, "It's inconsistent to denounce white supremacy but not repudiate voter ID laws." Did you say that?
Thank you for the questions, Senator.
You're welcome.
I believe that was an interview I gave in the days after Charlottesville,
Right.
and I believe those statements were it was in my role as an advocate regarding my work representing voters in Alabama challenging.
So you didn't mean them as a person?
I made them in my role as an advocate.
Do you mean them as a person? I'm not asking you in your role as an advocate. Do you believe that if you're against white supremacy, you have to be against voter ID laws?
Senator, in my role as an advocate, I have.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you about this. It wasn't the case. I'm asking you what you believe, and I don't appreciate you dodging my question. Now, this is a serious position you've been nominated for. Do you believe that someone who is against white supremacy also has to be against voter ID laws?
Senator, no. The Supreme Court has held that photo ID.
What do you believe?
I believe that the Supreme Court has held.
What do you believe personally?
I believe that photo ID laws have been held to be constitutional.
Do you think voter ID laws are appropriate or inappropriate?
I believe those are questions that election officials.
Do you believe that voter ID laws are appropriate or inappropriate?
I believe that photo ID laws have been held to be constitutional. I believe there are cases in which they are.
What do you believe?
I believe there are cases in which they are appropriate.
What do you believe?
I also believe there are cases
What do you
in
believe?
which they can.
What do you believe? Do you
Senator,
believe?
let her answer, please.
I'm trying to. We both know what's going on, Mr. Chairman.
Let her complete the
Well,
sentence.
let me do my own questioning, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your help, Professor. Do you believe that voter IDs laws are appropriate or not?
I believe there are circumstances where photo ID laws can be constitutionally implemented. And I believe that the Supreme Court has also held that there are circumstances when they would not be constitutionally permitted.
Okay. All right, Ms. Chaudhry. Am I saying your name right?
It is Chaudhry.
Chaudhry. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you.
In 2015, you were on a panel at Princeton University. You said that the killing of unarmed black men by police happens every day in America. Did you say that?
Senator, I don't recall a statement, but it is something I may have said in that context.
You think it happens every single day?
Senator, I believe in that statement, I was making a comment in my role as an advocate, and I was engaging in rhetorical advocacy, which
But do you
advocates
believe
do.
that police officers kill unarmed black men every day in America?
Senator, I believe the killing of unarmed citizens by law enforcement is tragic, and I believe in that instance
I think it's tragic too, but do you believe, this is a really simple question, Counselor, do you believe that cops kill unarmed black men in America every single day? You said it at Princeton.
Senator, I said it in my role as an advocate.
Oh, okay, you didn't mean it.
Senator, I said it in my role as an advocate to make a rhetorical point.
So when you say something that's incorrect, it's okay to excuse it by saying, oh, I was being an advocate? What do you believe? Do you personally believe that cops kill unarmed black men every single day in America?
Senator, I believe law enforcement have an important and challenging job in this country.
That's not what you said, though, Counselor.
Senator, I say before you here today that I do believe law enforcement have a difficult and challenging job, and I also understand the difference
I just think that's an extraordinary statement to make with no data to back up. None whatsoever. There's no basis for you saying that. And you knew it then and you know it now. How can one possibly believe that you're going to be unbiased on the federal bench?
Senator, I believe my record shows that I have worked collaboratively with law enforcement in Boston, Chicago, Mississippi, and Milwaukee to solve complex problems to promote constitutional, effective, and safe
Your record
policing.
shows that you believe cops are guilty until proven innocent. Your record shows that if a cop, if a cop shoots a criminal, it's the cop's fault. And if a criminal shoots a cop, it's the gun's fault. I've read your record. Ms. Murrell, and I don't appreciate you not answering the question straight up. I would respect you a lot more if you'd just tell us what you believe and not try to hide it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Chaudhary, I'd like to start with you. Last year, you sent a letter to the Chicago Police Department criticizing the use of foot pursuits, describing them as unacceptably, needlessly dangerous. If you're opposed to foot pursuits, how are police supposed to pursue someone who is fleeing under circumstances where pursuit is warranted? Are you okay with car pursuits, bike pursuits, pursuits on horseback, or is it the idea that they can't pursue at all?
Thank you for the question, Senator. The letter that I sent as counsel to organizations enforcing a consent decree against Chicago police did not oppose foot pursuits per se. They were concerned about the lack of any policy by the Chicago Police Department to curb dangerous and unnecessary foot pursuits. When a first-of-its-kind policy was promulgated in June, we made recommendations for how to improve that policy to curb that practice. And I will give some further context that in 2017, the Department of Justice, in finding that the Chicago Police Department had a pattern of excessive force against communities of color, noted that dangerous and unnecessary foot pursuits, in the Department of Justice's words, was part of the problem.
Okay, so you're not opposed to foot pursuits overall?
That is correct, Senator.
In the letter, pages 5 to 6 of the letter, you seem to suggest that they shouldn't have them at all if the person being chased suffers from a behavioral health crisis, including someone with mental illness. I assume that's difficult for police to ascertain in the moment, but I was just curious about that. Let me speak next to a tweet that you sent out a few years ago. No, this one was not a tweet. You, while participating in a panel called Resistance and Liberation, you suggested that a judge made a decision in a particular case involving an immigration policy developed by the Trump administration because he, quote, heard the 1,000 protesters on the street saying, "Let him in, judges here," you said. Should judges be influenced by people protesting?
Thank you for the question, Senator. In my view, judges should not be influenced by people protesting. I do believe that what you're referencing is a tweet that I made at one point, trying to motivate people at the time to engage in their First Amendment right to freedom of expression, which I felt was important in my role as an advocate at the ACLU.
Yeah, but it seems to me that you were suggesting that a judge made the decision based on that. You said the judge heard 1,000 protesters speaking, judges here. Does that suggest that you have confirmed as a federal district judge would be influenced by people speaking if they were sufficiently loud, numerous, or articulate, eloquent?
Senator, I would not. I believe judges focus on the facts and the law, and as I mentioned earlier, I believe it is critical for judges to have an open mind with respect to each case, to scrupulously review the factual record, and to research the applicable law and ensure that they are following binding precedent of their circuit and the Supreme Court in order to reach a decision that is compelled by the law.
In 2017, you spoke out about a change in policy by the U.S. Department of Justice, a policy regarding court fine and fee payments. And in response to it, you said that the, quote, the federal government doesn't care about civil rights law when it comes to protecting poor people. What did you mean by that?
Senator, I believe you're referencing potentially a blog that I wrote concerning the Department of Justice's decision in 2017 to withdraw an earlier guidance the department had issued to state court leaders around the country, reminding them of Supreme Court precedents that guard against incarceration for poverty. This includes Bearden versus Georgia, Griffin versus Illinois, and other precedents. In my role as an advocate, I've represented ACLU clients in challenging practices where people have been unlawfully jailed because of their poverty in violation of those precedents. And in my role as an advocate, I was concerned that the Department of Justice was signaling to state court leaders that they no longer needed to adhere to those precedents.
In 2018, you signed a letter as a former classmate of Senator Josh Hawley, who was then on the ballot in his campaign for the United States Senate. You signed it with some classmates from Yale Law School. In that letter, you and the other signatories say that, you quote, no, it's not our job to tell Missourians how to vote, but we do believe Missourians deserve to know that Josh is lying to you. The letter suggests that Senator Hawley is, as you describe him, a quote-unquote coastal elite, an interesting accusation coming from a group of Yale Law School alums, and accused him of, quote, dishonesty that, quote, goes beyond just the phony story that he's telling about himself. And then it adds that, quote, for all the 15 years that many of us have known Josh, if such a thing exists, it is also exactly who he has been, a coastal elite climbing a political ladder. Have you ever written a letter like that in response to any other classmates who do share your political views or your party affiliation?
Senator, thank you for the opportunity to address this issue. I did not draft, but I co-signed the letter that you reference, and I regret its tone, and I apologize to Senator Hawley and this committee for its overheated language. And that is not reflective of how I've conducted myself over 16 years in representing Americans who can't afford counsel in their constitutional rights cases, and it does not reflect how I will conduct myself going forward if I am so fortunate as to be confirmed.
Mr. Chairman, just brief follow-up on that. I appreciate that. I respect those who are willing to apologize. But I assume you did read the letter before you signed it. You didn't draft it. When you say I regret its tone, I mean, that tone isn't great. I mean, the tone's awful, but it's not the biggest problem with it. Are you disclaiming the factual assertions you made in the letter? Calling Senator Josh Hawley a liar?
Senator, I regret both the tone and the overheated language, which was overheated language in the moment, and I apologize for signing it.
But the underlying factual assertion is what I'm asking you about.
And that is overheated language that was engaged in the moment, and I apologize for that, as I mentioned.
Thank you.
Senator Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, Ms. Abudu, congratulations. I want to just talk to you, at least initially, a little bit about the law. Ms. Abudu, what's the adequate and independent state grounds doctrine?
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
You're welcome.
In my practice, I actually haven't had an opportunity to use that principle or doctrine, but my general understanding is that it speaks to the fact that if a federal court is able to resolve an issue based on state law grounds, then that is what should lead in terms of the court's ultimate decision.
Okay. What is the selective incorporation doctrine?
That also, in the voting rights or civil rights context, is a term that I haven't had to come across. But what I do know is that as a legal research and writer, and for sure confronting possibly new areas of law, I look very forward to doing my due diligence in terms of making sure I'm familiar with doctrines such as that one.
Do you know what it is?
So no, I'm not familiar with it sitting here today.
Selective incorporation doctrine? Okay. Well, you're going to see a lot of it if you're confirmed on the 11th Circuit. Can Congress pass any law that the Constitution doesn't prohibit?
Based on the frame of your question, I would say yes, that sounds right.
So you think Congress has plenary power?
Well, I would first look to what the Supreme Court has said in terms of following precedent.
No, but I'm interested, if I could, Counselor, in your opinion, does the United States Congress have delegated powers or plenary power?
Well, the Congress has both, I would say, from my general understanding. Again, it depends on the context and the issue, but
Okay.
it is.
Can you explain the difference to me between strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny?
Senator, strict scrutiny is the highest level of scrutiny that's often applied in constitutional cases.
What's the definition? I'm sorry, go ahead. Excuse me.
So it requires that a state, when enacting a law or regulation, have a compelling governmental interest for doing so, and that the law is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest.
Okay.
And then intermediate, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so intermediate speaks to the issue of having a substantial interest or or an important governmental interest that is substantially related.
Okay. Do you believe that the meaning of the Constitution is immutable, or does it change over time?
Senator, I would say that the Supreme Court in some cases has analyzed that issue, and the response really does depend on the context and the issue. But what the court does or has done in its approach, of course, is look to the plain meaning of a statute or of the Constitution, because that really is where the inquiry should start. And if the language is plain, then that is where the inquiry can end.
Okay, thank you for that. You were involved in a 2021 report from the Southern Poverty Law Center about voting in Louisiana. Did you say, quote, racist white Southerners, close quote, and, quote, hostile white voters and governmental officials in Louisiana continue to make local polling places and early voting locations threatening spaces for black voters? Did you say that?
Senator, I do not believe that I said that. I haven't read that publication in some time.
Will you help write it?
I helped to draft the publication and approved it, but I'm not familiar with that
Oh,
language.
you don't? Okay. In that same report, did you say, well, tell me where in Louisiana local polling places and early voting locations are threatening African-American voters? You said it, so which polling places?
So again, Senator, obviously I don't have that report in front of me to be able to read and remind myself of the examples that might have been shared. But what I can say is that Louisiana.
Let me cut you off because I'm going to run out of time, Counselor. Let me ask you one more. In August 2021, we're not talking 20 years ago, we're talking 2021, you were involved in another report by the SPLC. And you said that voter identification, photo ID to vote, is burdensome and does not serve any legitimate state interest. Do you really believe that?
Senator, identification for voting is something.
Yes, but first, do you really believe that? You said it. You meant it?
The Supreme Court in Crawford v. Marion County has already upheld voter ID laws as per se
Yeah, but you said it
constitutional.
didn't serve any legitimate state interest. Do you believe that?
Again, Senator, without that language in front of me, it's hard to understand
You
the
said
context.
it. Here it is, August 2021.
Well, there are
I'm
cases.
just asking you to explain to me why having to prove you are who you say you are before you vote doesn't serve, you said it doesn't serve any legitimate state interest. I'm just asking you to explain that statement to me.
I understand, Senator Kennedy, and again, without being able to see the language that appears before and after, it's hard for the context.
You deny that you said it?
I can't say that I haven't seen that language in front of me, but what I do know is that there have been voter ID cases in which courts have found
But
that
I know, I'm familiar with the case law, but I'm asking what you think, because you may be on the 11th Circuit. Do you believe that voter ID is inappropriate?
my commitment is to uphold the Supreme Court's decision in Crawford v.
I
Marion
know, but
County.
here you said it was inappropriate. You deny that?
Well, again,
Saying it?
Senator, it would be helpful to know if that section of the report also cites to cases in which federal courts have found that certain voter ID laws do pose an burden on voters.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.